So we are in Job 6, and Job 6 says, one day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming through the earth and going back and forth in it." And that's actually 6 and 7. So let's just start with the angels. In some translations, it's the sons of God. But either way, they're the good guys easily. And then there's a little note next to Satan. And if you go back to the original text, it is, it is defined as the accuser. And so anyway, the first thing that jumps out at me is, what does Satan think he has a right to be in front of God with? I mean, that I don't see why God doesn't just take him out. Like, why does he think that he is going to be safe in God's presence? Like, he has a right to be there. And the story that comes to mind is the story of Esther. And this is like on earth story, not, it's a biblical story, but Esther was asked to go before the king and contend for her people, and keep them from being annihilated by the government. And Esther says, well, you can't just walk into the king's court without an invitation, or he could have you killed. And they said, well, we're going to pray and fast, or she says, pray and fast for him. And she does. She goes before the king, fully knowing that he could take her out, but willing to contend for her people. And she did. And he didn't kill her. He extended his scepter and said, speak. And she spoke. And because she did that, her people got to live. They were not annihilated. So, great story, but, that's the story that comes to mind. It's a human, court, not the heavenly court. But I do think, why isn't that playing out in heaven? Like, why doesn't God just say, hey, you don't have any right to be here. I didn't invite you, and I can take you out. But he doesn't. He gives the space for Satan. And all I can think of is that there is some unspoken code of conduct, some rule in effect, or something that makes Satan feel like he is justified in being there, and God is submitting himself to his own code of conduct, or his own rules, because he makes them. He made the laws of the universe, and he doesn't have to submit to the laws of the universe. But I'm thinking, in his integrity, in this moment, he is submitting himself to rules that he created, or laws of of the universe that he's created. And so here's Satan. So God doesn't pretend that this is all good. He doesn't welcome the angels. Hey, glad to see you. He gets straight to the point, which is, where are you coming from? I hear him saying something like, what are you doing here? And it's not a pleasant thing. And then Satan says, from roaming the earth. And I'm thinking, okay, I know what's coming next. There's this whole thing about Job and everything, but he hasn't accused anybody. So Satan is the accuser, and his goal, as the accuser, is to kind of alienate God from man. Like, look, not worth it. They're evil. They don't love you. It's a lost cause, God. And then what he does with us is he's the tempter. It's like, God doesn't really have your back. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't love you. He shows up, and his whole MO is, in that situation, alienate us from God. So that's kind of his way. And my thoughts here that, God and Satan are not on equal standing here, and Satan can't go head to head in a battle with God. So he's got to, his way of fighting God has got to be to hurt his creation. Like somebody who wanted to fight with me, who couldn't fight with me, would really there, but yet Satan hasn't accused anybody yet. It's God who says, knowing full well, what Satan's probably trying to do, because that's what he does, says, have you considered my servant Job? And that I've had to sit with and think about in a whole lot of different ways. Like, why would God put Job out there for this? I mean, how do you do that to somebody you love? Oh, have you, considered my servant Job? Wow. But he does. He directs Satan towards Job. And so I've thought about, maybe if there was any other person that Satan was thinking of accusing, God knew that they may not have the faith or the stamina to stand the test. Maybe God, maybe God's, I don't know, but Job's apparently our contender. And God put him in that position. God directed Satan towards, have you considered my servant Job? He's going to represent, apparently. And I'm just thinking, how do I wrap my mind around that story? Well, certainly can't imagine putting one of my kids in a position like that. But as I was kind of praying and thinking about it, I thought about a strawberry, and I thought about somebody who, maybe I have a garden somewhere and somebody shows up and they're a naysayer and a bulldozer and they're wanting to bulldoze my garden, and I know they're wanting to. They don't even have to tell me. They want me to scrap it. It's not worth it. But as soon as I see them, I'm like, excuse me, what are you doing here? And they don't have to answer. Well, I've been looking at your garden. And I'm like, no. Have you seen my strawberry plant? In other words, you're not taking my garden. You're not going to bulldoze my garden. It is definitely worth saving. I have got a strawberry plant, and I can see, the bulldozer killer, strawberry killer, saying something like, well, you've babied it, you've sheltered it. It's not a viable plant, and it's certainly not going to produce any fruit. I mean, you've given it, let it face the sun and the bugs and heavy rains, and it's not gonna survive. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I think it will. And in fact, I think it's firmly planted, and it's going to produce fruit. And not only that, someday it's going to be a strawberry field. It is strong and it's nutritious, and it's going to be able to take the elements. And so I find myself in this, position with my strawberry plant. And then I think, okay, Michelle, this is not real life. This is, your kind of own imagination, and this is a real person we're talking about, Job. Maybe you're being a little too flippant. And so I'm meditating a little bit more, and I think about another, what comes to mind is my daughter's softball team. When she was 6 years old, it's her first spring season. So she'd played fall ball, but her first spring season ever to play t-ball, 6 years old. We end up on this team where the coach's daughter doesn't want to play, and the coach doesn't really want to coach. And so about half the time they're not there. And another thing about this team is there were 5 of the players were deaf, and there was no interpreter. And so, definitely for softball teams, kind of a lost cause maybe in many cases, because, anyway. So one Saturday morning, early, we show up to play Lake Travis, one of our first games. And the coach doesn't show, daughter doesn't show, a few other players don't show, and the ones that are, a lot of the people that are there are not happy to be there, and it's looking bleak. But my husband steps up and walks out onto the field to meet the other coach and the umpire, and the umpire's name, I've gotten to know her since, is Hattie, but I think she's she may be the baseball commissioner now, but anyway, she was calling the game, and I'm certain, everybody's like, we just need to scrap this and go home. And my husband steps up and says, have you seen my daughter Grace? We're here to play ball. And the umpire says, well, play ball. And so we play ball, and we take an out every ninth batter, because we don't have a batter, so we take an out, and then we don't have a center fielder. And my daughter plays pitcher, and in t-ball she doesn't pitch, she just fields, but it's a great position for her because she can cover first, she can cover catcher, she can cover third and short, which she does all of those. Not because we don't have players there, we do, we have, you know, very eager players. It's just that they're deaf and they can't hear the coach and they don't know what to do. These are 6-year-old t-ball girls. And so my daughter, who can hear the coach, is trying to help cover these positions. And the umpire says, we have an all-star here. And so, you know, what ends up happening actually is that summer she does. She plays all-stars, and she makes some of the best friends she's had all of her life. But in that game, I don't know. I don't know if we won or lost, but we contended. I do remember that. We definitely contended. And my husband said to these girls and to my daughter, and has said to the girls a number of times since, never underestimate the heart of a champion. And we were all changed that day. And after that, my husband started bringing a dry erase board to practices and to the games so that he could communicate with the team. And we started watching Signing Times, which was a little show that teaches sign to children through songs. And so we learned how to sign, coach, and win, and run, and all that stuff, and we did. And fast forward to today, you know, my daughter still plays softball, and she's played, you know, all-stars in a number of seasons since, and she's signed up to take sign language as an exchange student for her first year of high school next year. So definitely contended. And I think about, you know, never underestimate the heart of a champion, and don't scrap everything. Yeah, God believed in Job as much as Job believed in God, or more. And so I love, you know, there's that saying, baseball is life, softball is life, and there is in the Bible, it talks about God being a gardener, the master gardener, and Jesus, you know, I am the vine and you are the branches. So, you know, universal kind of laws of nature. And so here, Satan has shown up, and he's ready to, you know, alienate God from his people. And God immediately doesn't even need to be asked or told at all. He knows what Satan's up to. He says, have you considered my servant Job? Like, whatever it is that you have in store, Job is a contender. And so that is kind of my thoughts this morning. And as I think about who, you know, the Jobs out there in my life, my cousin Scotty, I have other friends who are, you know, have husbands battling cancer, Roger with brain cancer, Dale with bone cancer, and then some, you know, other husband-wife teams where the wife's struggling. You know, it would be easy for us to just go, oh, lost cause, you know, whatever. That's tough, but I don't think that's what God's up to at all. I think God's showing us through the situations that we have around us what he's able to do in the heart of a champion, or with the heart of a champion. And so to all my friends and family, Job's and Job's wives and Job's friends out there, yeah, God considers you. He's considering you.